Hi, everyone. I'm James Protin. I'd like to give a special thank you to our sponsors for the podcast. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the podcast. Once again, we're coming to you from Chico Bocello in Canonsburg. If you haven't been here, if you don't know about it, get here. It's at 111 Pike Street, the main street in Canonsburg. These are some of the best people around, and this is a great shop. You need to be here and check this out. So we're here for episode number 39 of the podcast. Hard to believe, Nick. 39. That's a big one. And joining me today are some of my colleagues from Greenman Peterson, Inc., GPI. To my left is Ifeanyi Odigboh, Diane Altland, and George Sarapa. These guys are all professional engineers, all with 20-plus years experience in the industry. And we've all known each other for probably 20 years at least. So we're going to have a conversation around not just the engineering industry, but business in general, right? And the difficulty that it seems all companies are having in attracting, developing, and retaining new talent, whether it's young to old, whatever the case may be. But that's a big issue, right? And you know, all of us here have come to this place to be at GPI together from different places. We all have different career paths. And Ifeanyi, I'd like to start with you. You obviously had the longest path to get here, right? You're the only one sitting amongst us that grew up on a different continent.
Yeah, so nice you would start with me because I see I'll probably have the longest story. So I grew up in Nigeria, the eastern part of Nigeria, and that's why I went to school. I had my first degree there in civil engineering, and when I graduated, I went to Belgium to do a master's degree, and I was in Belgium for about 4 years, and I didn't quite like it because I couldn't speak the language that well. And,
It's a complicated language.
Yeah, so I moved to Canada, and I did another master's there, and while I finished and I started working doing something in database development, and then I got a call from somebody at Chester from Pittsburgh, and that's when I came to the States in 2001.
Right.
So about 20 years ago.
That's where we were at Chester then. That's where.
Yeah. And so was with Chester for about 7 years, and then went to Hezron and Sawyer for about 4 or 5 years, and then last with MS Consultants for about 10 years before joining GPI. So
you realize you're not supposed to be plugging our competitors, right? Well, Chester's okay because they're not around anymore. So I have a quick question for you. If at any time, so you got your civil engineering degree in Nigeria, right? So at any time after you got that degree, did you think about coming straight to the States? Because you went to Belgium, you went to Canada, you kind of took a circuitous route to get here. Was there any thought of coming to the States at that point?
Yeah, I kind of thought about it because I had aunts that lived in the States. The problem was the cost of, and so I had to go where I was able to get scholarships. So that's the reason why I took the path that I took. So
okay. Interesting. And what you do for us, you're director of water resources, focus a lot on that hydraulic modeling and things like that. Really, really, really quick in a really condensed Reader's Digest version. What does that mean? Tell us what modeling is.
Okay, so I will start with water resources. Water resources has to do with anything about water. So potable water, wastewater, what happens with water once it falls on the ground, and where it flows, the hydrologic cycle and everything, and then the hydraulics of it. How do we move it from one place to another? We're doing it? There's a lot of development going on. So how do we protect ourselves from the effects of development, flooding, and all that stuff? And modeling is pretty much trying to create small facets of reality that help you anticipate what's going to happen.
Okay, good, excellent. Okay, Ms. Altland, and Diane Altland, who it's not a coincidence that she has the same name as Nick. Full transparency here, it's his mom, and he has actually called his mom and told on me when he didn't agree with me on stuff. But Diane is actually the boss. She's executive vice president at GPI, and she is the water business line, water practice leader, technical leader. So, Diane, because of all those things, you get to talk as long as you want.
Oh, thanks.
So,
so my route here is, probably not as far away circuitous, but circuitous nonetheless. I'm actually a chemical engineer by degree. I started doing industrial wastewater treatment with Chester.
Mm-hmm.
I left right before you came, Ifeanyi. Mm-hmm. So, but I did a lot of steel mills and different manufacturing companies, did wastewater and water for them. And then I left and went to the municipal side. I spent another 5 years in municipal before Cannonsburg Houston Joint Authority, who was a client, hired me away to work for them directly. So spent another 10 years with them. Decided I didn't want to do municipal work anymore. Went to manufacturing. Nick will tell you I bankrupted 3 startup companies. And after that, I thought maybe I should go back to environmental because that was stable. So, yeah. Anyhow.
So I'm not the only one he does that to.
No.
Okay.
I hear about it all the time.
So I feel better now. I'm not alone. I'm not alone. And speaking of Cannonsburg, we're sitting in Cannonsburg right now, and we are just finishing up a 2-phase $60 million upgrade and expansion to the wastewater treatment plant here, which, interestingly enough, 20 years ago, maybe something like that.
17
years ago.
Yeah.
Diane and I and a dear colleague of ours, Mark Poole, who's since passed, rest his soul, literally laid it out on the back of a napkin at Atria's over on Route 19 in McMurray there. So, and $60 million and 17 years later, that napkin came to fruition. So that's one of my favorite. 40 years I've been doing this. That's still one of my favorite stories.
It is. One more week where it'll be all started up.
Yeah.
So,
So
next Tuesday.
So Nick, we got to go get some napkins. We need some work.
I need to do some more design work. Yeah.
And last but not least, one of my favorite guys in this business, George Sarapa. George, glad you're here, man. It's we go back a long way, and we've had some fun and done some cool things in this business.
We have for sure. Thanks for inviting us all. It's good to be sitting here with my team. So you wanted a little background, little run through. Again, can't quite match Ifeanyi's journey here, but kind of an interesting path, I think, to get to where we are today, where I am today. Actually started out in school pursuing a degree in electrical engineering, of all things.
Interesting.
Yeah. Got through about 2.5 years of that. And I just said, you know what? It's a little too abstract. I can't really wrap my head around what I'm studying here. Fourier transforms and what's going on, electrons traveling through. Had some interesting experiences. Actually worked at a manufacturer where they build nuclear subs.
Okay.
Designed a few things there. I got to walk around on Trident, nuclear submarines while they're being built. That was pretty neat. But I just decided this is not the right path for me. Actually switched over into geology, and that kind of leads me to the path where I am today. Finished up my degree in geology and got out of school in '91, and I realized, wait a minute, it's awfully hard to get a job around here.
Yeah, there you go.
And bounced around for a few years, and then ended up realizing I needed to pursue a graduate degree. And that's how I ended up in Pittsburgh. So '94 was made an offer I couldn't refuse at the University of Pittsburgh. Ended up in the engineering school there. And that's where I was introduced to GIS, which is kind of my role here at GPI, GIS and Asset Management. Honestly, my advisor at the time said, I can cover you for a semester here at Pitt doing this GIS stuff. I can barely spell it, but if you want to take a chance, go for it. And that's kind of been emblematic of how my career has kind of progressed, I think. So pursued that, got my degree in civil engineering, and then worked for various engineering firms, Chester being one of them. We've all kind of shared that. That's our common bond here.
That's a common bond, yeah.
Bounced around a little bit. I actually did a little stint at FedEx, worked in their enterprise GIS team for about a year. And then worked for AECOM and ended up here at GPI. But always kind of kept keeping one foot in the engineering space and then one foot in the GIS asset management space, kind of bridging that gap. And really, I started doing that at Pitt. And that's kind of continued all the way through. It's kind of a strange way to make a career, but it's been good. I enjoy it.
You know, it's that journey. That's the thing, man. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody has come from a different place, and here we all are, you know, at a common goal. So even though we're all in the engineering industry, and that's what we're really here to talk about, but the topic of attracting, developing, and retaining talent is really, that's across any sector, any geography. It doesn't really matter. It's not just the engineering industry, although, you know, we went to the WEFTech conference and thousands of people registered for that conference, and that was the topic that was heard and discussed the most, right?
Yep.
So when you think about, every company is really only as strong as the talent of the people that work there, right? So let's talk a little bit about what's important, okay? Now, from our perspective as the senior leaders, right? And we're going to do a follow-up to this with our younger staff, okay? So, and just to see what the difference is in the different thoughts, we'll use the same topics. So, Diane, I'm going to start with you. What do you think is the importance of workplace culture?
I think it's a huge importance. I mean, that's the main way we attract people. I mean, you have to we spend a lot of time together. We spend 40 hours plus a week together. You have to like where you work. You have to like the people you're working with. You have to share the same values. And unrelated somewhat to to GPI, but when the one startup I worked at, we had the dirtiest area. We had the hardest work. It was all manual. And we had the best team, and people wanted to work for us. There were automated jobs where you just stood there and watched things go on. Those people were trying to get in with us. And so it is about the culture, right? It is about wanting to have people you like working with, people who are all moving towards the same goal, and really see things the same way. So.
Sure, and I think in you guys jump in, but I think in your position as tip of the spear, so to speak, right? Particularly not just for our office, okay, but also for an entire corporate practice area, right? The water practice line. So everybody on the team kind of feeds off of you, right? Even us, and we've been doing this a long time. But I mean, if you're having a bad day, we feel that, right? If you're enthusiastic and confident about a pursuit that we're going after, we feel that too,
Right.
So I mean,
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, I think workplace culture is, huge. You have to want to come into work, right? And it's about the people. I mean, that's one thing I think that we, as you can see in this group here, we're all friends.
right, right, absolutely.
There's no guarantee of that, in your workplace, but it sure helps, and it makes it much easier to, you want to support your friends, you want to do what's right, and I think it kind of puts you in a position where you want to kind of bring your A game every day.
Yeah.
And that's all driven by culture. If you're kind of working in an environment where there's, competition, there's sort of backstabbing, that just erodes your team. And then no one's working at their potential. So I think culture really, a strong culture, a strong workplace culture, just kind of encourages people to bring their A game, do their best, and maybe bring a little bit more, and elevate the work that we do. So. And this is this company has a strong culture. It's kind of inclusive, it's open, and it's just it's an easy place to work and do your best. So,
well, GPI's, they really walk their talk, and a lot of firms, especially big firms, we've worked at the major firms, right?
For
and
sure.
not all of them do that. Not calling anybody out, but GPI definitely walks the talk when it comes to culture in the workplace, within the office. And I think we do it better than most.
Yeah, culture is very important. The way I look at it, culture is a way of life, way of thinking, way of doing things. And one thing I would say about culture is, especially for me, is you have to learn to adapt and change to culture. So I do that as somebody. I would call myself an immigrant, and so that would be one major thing. You adapt to the culture of where you're going to. But the thing is, it varies also based on age too, because the younger people have a different way of seeing things.
A different perspective.
Yeah,
right?
and it means a lot to them, which may not mean as much to me as somebody that is older. So the flexibility in the workplace and other things that make people feel at home and happy to come to work, it's something that we try to include and cultivate in an office setting. That way people look forward to coming into the office or working with colleagues.
And it carries over because, we're a good example because we do things socially outside of the office. And, so, and that, that doesn't always happen. I've worked in companies where, you went to work and at 4 or 5 o'clock, you went home and you didn't see anybody until the next day, and there's a lot to be said for work-life balance and all those things. But I think if you don't have that cohesiveness, in the workplace, and, I actually, when I met your lovely wife, I looked at you in a completely different light because I still have no idea how you pulled that off. So we're trying to figure that out.
Me neither.
Like the rest of us, right? I mean, it's like we're all in that boat. But something that jumped out at me, and one of our colleagues, Marvin Williams, brought this up to me this morning. He called me really early. He must have been thinking about it down in Texas. But one of the big it became a much more prevalent in the political campaigns in this recent midterm election is the importance of childcare in the workplace, right? So not overall health care and benefits, but for people, you have to deal with your children, right? So, having that childcare piece, the flexibility to have a flex schedule, which you do. So, all of us have the opportunity to work remotely if we need to do so. And that's something that's not questioned. It's not looked at anyway and I think it's very productive, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's a scary one because a lot of people have different ways they come at it. The decision I and my wife made so many years ago, because my kids are kind of older now, but the decision we made years ago was that she stay at home, so we had to live on one income. And that was very difficult, but that was a decision we made because of what we choose to do for the kids. And every family or couple, they make their own decisions. And I know it's kind of tough in talking to people. I would say one thing. There was a lady I worked at my former place of work, and she would come into work late or have issues, but she couldn't get time off to take care of her kid or go to the hospital. And her boss would always, be mean to her. And I really felt bad that I probably should have also said something, but she ended up quitting because she couldn't, manage it too. So I'm happy that at GPI we try to do things that would encourage people to have that flexibility and, to accommodate whatever circumstances they find themselves in.
Well, right. And, in Diane, if you think about following up on what Ifeanyi said, your best employees, okay, you could be a great engineer, a very talented employee, but just have a total disaster in your personal life. Oh. Right. So you've got to be able to balance that. Or if you have, a single parent, and Georgie, I want you to weigh in on this, but it goes to the retention piece. If you have that high performing employee, but they've got issues going on outside of the office, work-life balance only goes so far. You've got to step in and be able to recognize that and make certain accommodations, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, and I think we have, but by not mentioning names, we have two people who work for me now who had issues with childcare and not getting that flexibility from their previous boss, and are great employees now because it's like I get that. I mean, I was a single parent for a number of years as well, where I had to juggle that. So I get it, and I mean, I think it's about having that honest conversation too. When you see someone's work going downhill or you see them not coming in, it's really going and talking to them and saying, hey, like, what's going on? Like, it's, let me know, because if I can help you, if I can give you that freedom to do work different times, work at home, do, whatever they need. And I think employees appreciate that, right? Because, we all have things that come up. All of us, that, even if your wife's at home, there's things you want to go to, right? There's concerts, there's different activities that you want to be at, and potentially work gets in that way. And so to open that up so that, employees can have that balance is important.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's definitely it. Following up on that a bit, I can say that in the jobs that I've had, even when I was married, we were raising little children. A lot of challenges there, some health issues with our oldest son early on, and at the time, I worked in organizations that actually were empathetic. They maybe that they didn't handle things incredibly skillfully. Maybe we didn't talk about things one-on-one, but they gave me the space to address these challenges that we were up against at home. And later on, in actually my career, somebody that we both know, that I work with at AECOM, he'd kind of been through the same sort of thing, through a separation and a divorce, and being able to sit there and talk with someone and actually have them listen and empathize, and then open up the space that that I needed at the time.
Right.
It's really important, but it also just from a kind of a work-life balance perspective, but also kind of makes you a little more loyal to that person, that firm.
That's huge. Again, we're talking about retaining
good talent.
the retention piece. That's,
and it takes so little, really.
Right.
It takes so little to listen, to empathize, to take a few minutes, but the return on that sort of that investment, I think, is huge.
I would say also that it starts at the top, and one of the reasons why I bring that up is I remember when I was interviewing to join GPI, and I think this was negotiating, I would say. I remember talking to Diane, and I was saying in my former workplace, I get this many hours of sick time and things like that, and she told me, don't worry about it. We'll do everything possible to make sure that you get any time you need to do whatever you want to do.
Right.
And that stuck with me. And I dropped everything I was requesting based on the way she said it, the confidence, and and the word empathy, the way that conveyed to me that this is an organization that is willing to do anything for the comfort of their employees.
Right. And I think also, like you referenced, the peer piece too, and it's, again, that goes back to culture. The fact that we're all friends, right? We work in this space, but we're friends, and there's that level of empathy there. If you're having a bad day, you don't have to go to Diane, you don't have to go to HR. You can go right over the cube and talk to Ifeanyi or to me or to, so that peer piece is really important as well, and that's what culture develops.
Right.
Well, and I'll say one thing on that too, which I thought from a corporate level, I haven't seen anywhere else I've worked. There was an employee who was sick, who had, I want to say had cancer, and they sent out an email to the entire company and said, if you want to give up one of your vacation days or some of your time, we will transfer that to that person and pay them then. And so they were on,
who does that?
Well,
that
exactly.
Is like really cool.
And what we saw was like, not only did the senior management step up, but I would say the middle level management stepped up and gave away days. The reality is a lot of us have vacation days we end up getting paid out for, right? So it's like, if we can give them to someone else so that they can, their family can keep going while they're sick. I just thought that was tremendous that they allowed that to happen.
That's awesome. That is awesome. So, we all know it's difficult to even attract talent, let alone, whether it's new talent right out of school, whether it's somebody 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, whatever the case may be, it's difficult, right? So I've always been one, and I tell the story, when I graduated from high school many, many moons ago, if you would have asked me what an engineer was, I would have said it's somebody who drives a train on the railroad, because that's what my grandfather did. To me, that's what an engineer was. So thinking about that, right, and now having been in the industry for 40 years and understanding everything about it, that, all of these things, I think the average young kid, whether they're on a college preparatory course or whatever the case may be, I think you have to go beyond and dig deeper than college, right? Because if a young person is studying civil engineering at Pitt, they pretty much have gone down the tracks far enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
But how we get more kids involved, particularly young girls and in the minority community, where we are seriously lagging behind as an industry, how do we get them interested in engineering and inspired to become an engineer? I think you have to go into middle school. I mean, that's just my thought. Like, to go in and start to put that out there and put that education piece out there. Here's a day in a life type thing, right? This is first of all, what is an engineer? What do engineers do? So, I mean, what do you think about that? Do you think that's too young?
No, it's not, because actually my daughter, even though she doesn't want to be an engineer, but she started early, and they started early in schools, which is very good, especially women in STEM.
Right.
They've been involved in that kind of stuff, trying to get young girls, say 12, 13, and to start looking at sciences, math and other things, bringing workshops to them to get that interest in them, But the one thing I'll say, that is going on, but a lot has to be put in to make sure it continues. But what I've also observed is those that kind of make it through into the industry end up leaving. And so we have to look for a way of keeping them when they start working. Where I used to work, there are 3 female engineers that left engineering altogether. One left to go do something in social work. The other went into accounting. And these are professional engineers, with at least nothing less than 5 years of experience. So there's something still in the, would I say, culture that seems to be male-dominated, especially in engineering. So not only do we have to start very early in, like you said, middle school age, make sure we have that for especially young girls and then African Americans, but also when they do make it through college and get into the industry, we have to look for a way of trying to accommodate their needs and things so that they continue in the field.
Whatever young person that comes out of any engineering program, everybody's different. Right, everybody's different, and GPI has this Cradle to Career program, right, which is a really, really cool program, and at least in our region here, in our neck of the woods, it's not something that that we do routinely, right? So we have a couple of young engineers that go to the college recruiting fairs. Ashley Reed, who's in the studio audience today. Thank you, Ashley, for coming and supporting us. And you're taking notes in everything that we say wrong, right? Okay. Just recently was at the University of Pittsburgh at their career fair. So, but
there's also something online on Saturday that GPI is doing. On Saturday, so there's some Zoom or virtual call that calling to students and stuff.
So we're reaching out there, but I think it's incumbent on us and our whole team to take a look deeper, and especially when we are working at street level in these communities, right? Whether it's Cannonsburg, whether it's it doesn't matter where it is. Meadville, Cannonsburg, they all have elementary schools, middle schools, high schools. So we should be the ones initiating that and reaching into those school districts to talk about, you guys both still have that age of child, right? And you have Lauren as well, she's a senior, and I have grandchildren that are that age. And so I think, to bring that, not so much as the attraction piece, but just to stimulate that interest. Because before you can attract them into your firm, you got to get them interested and get them into the field. Right?
Well, yeah, for sure. And I think, at a certain point, you have to stop thinking like an engineer just for a second, step back, and think about what is it that inspires people to get into this field. I mean, I can only speak for myself, but it's clean water, and I think to myself, why is that important to me? And if I'm honest, I was in school back when there was no STEM program, there was no STEAM program. It was just the science teacher with the muddy work boots who would say, let's go out and play in the mud and learn something,
Right.
but that inspired me. And, I lived in a place where I spent a lot of time near the water, on the water. Something just stuck. And that led me to pursue a career in environmental science and then eventually environmental engineering. So it comes back to inspiration. And maybe it comes back to just kind of putting our need as engineers to kind of come up with a solution all the time. Just think about what are the motivating factors, what gets young folks engaged, and then how might that lead to a career in engineering. And that's really across the board. It has nothing to do with gender,
Sure.
It's the fundamentals, is a clean environment important to you? Well, what does that mean exactly? Put kids out there in the woods, have them play in the streams, that's what engages folks, and that's what gets their minds kind of working toward.
Well, yeah, I agree, because you can throw numbers out at kids all you want, right? You can tell them that the majority of the world's population, 8 billion people, the vast majority of those people have never had access to clean water.
Yep.
And when you think about that, what is it, like 97% of the earth is covered by water, something like that,
3%
and only 3% is drinkable. So when you think about, not 98%, but 98% of the world's water, only 3% of that is
and
drinkable.
70% of the world is
70% of the world is water. So those numbers are staggering, especially to us that we're in the industry. But if you just said that to the average 14 or 15-year-old kid,
because all they know is they turn on the tap and water comes out.
Right.
So like, what are you talking about?
Taking that to the next step, right? And taking we did 2 tours now, right, at Cannonsburg at the treatment plant with Pitt and CMU, Carnegie Mellon. So why haven't we had Cannon McMillan STEM students out there, right? Yeah. So that's something.
And that's one thing Joel wanted to do. Joel was really like gung ho about getting like the high school students out.
High school and middle school. And we're right there, right? And they can see the treatment plant from the school. So it's something those types of things that. And again, you mentioned Joel Lofstrom, who is our construction manager here. He took the initiative. Nobody told him to do that, right? He took the initiative to get these things happening, and it just is a no-brainer, and it covers the giving, right? We get a lot from these communities.
We do,
right? We've done very well from a business standpoint in this community, and but we give back, right? We give back our time. We invest financially. So, but I think that piece of educating younger people about engineering and about the different opportunities. Engineering's a broad brush, right? I mean, it's a very broad brush. You 3 guys in particular, you're all engineers. You're all very different kind of engineers, right? All working on the same types of projects toward the same goal. So you mentioned 2 things, motivation and inspiration, when you just talked, right? So I'm an inspiration guy. I think there's 2 the way I look at it, I break it down very simply, okay? Motivation is internal, inspiration is external, okay? You can inspire me to want to do something, but you can't motivate me to go out and do it, right? So once I'm inspired, okay, then it's up to me to motivate myself to go out and take action, okay? So in your minds, as you've all managed people, you've all had staff and, that you're responsible for, would you rather have a motivated employee or an inspired employee?
Wow, that's a tough one. I think for me, it really doesn't matter. What would matter is to be able to differentiate which is which and try to help the person where they're deficient. And to me, that's the struggle. And why I bring that up is there was some time back, I used to go teach math or help kids out in math in one of the Pittsburgh schools. And so mostly African Americans. But I found out that a lot of them were not necessarily motivated. And even the ones that were inspired, tried to hide the fact that they were intelligent because they felt others would
peer pressure.
Others would not, And then one of them even said to me, "What's the point? Nobody in I know has gone to college or done anything.
Right.
What And so For me, it doesn't really matter. It's being in a position to try and talk to whoever where they're at and try to bring them or get them to see the potential and opportunities out there.
Yeah, that's I mean, that's fantastic. How do you look at that?
I'd go with inspired because I've hired very motivated people, but if they're not moving in the same direction as like that I'm moving and we want the company or the group to move, they become a distraction. And a lot of times they become a problem because they're coming up with like these big ideas, but they don't fit into what we're trying to do.
And it goes back to the culture, and it disrupts the culture.
It does.
And that's a very delicate balance to begin with.
Yeah. So I mean, I've hired here, but even in other places, I've hired some what I thought would be stellar employees because they were super motivated, and they've turned out to be like the biggest problems for me. So sometimes you can get the motivated people to go the way you want, but a lot of times you can't. So they have their own mindset.
Well, I don't think people are predisposed to follow a motivator as much as they are somebody who is inspirational, somebody who can reach out and inspire them and ignite that flame, get that fire going. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I know you wanted to talk about mentorship at some point here too, and I think it all goes hand in hand.
We can lead into it.
Yeah. I mean, that's our job. It's to inspire people, and also to listen and to be sort of attentive enough to get a better sense of what does inspire these folks. Just because we might have a vision of where we think things go, and that might not be what the folks that work under us. That might not be where they're at. So you need to kind of reach them where they're at. And then work with what they have and work with what they're bringing to the table to inspire them to do something.
Right.
And I think, motivation comes from kind of follows on, right?
Right.
If you can inspire someone, if you can light that flame, 9 times out of 10, they'll motivate themselves to get the work done.
Yep.
And, I'm speaking from experience, this was not for kids, younger folks, but some of the best experience I had at work so far is kind of in the mentoring vein, but it's with a young man who we both know. He shall remain nameless for now, but he was
He's not wanted by the law or anything.
No, he's
nothing.
fine.
He's okay.
Well, as far as I know. But here was a fellow who sat in his cube, completely unmotivated, completely uninspired. And I kind of came into this organization and I saw him sitting there in sort of a diamond in the rough, right? All it took in this case was just to give him some leash, to give him some rope. He was motivated and inspired, and he's run with that, and he's doing great things today.
And he's brilliant.
He's brilliant,
but he didn't. That wasn't coming out because you're right. He was sitting there being overlooked.
Absolutely.
Right.
So
because
it's my job to bring that out. I'm not nearly as smart. I'm not nearly but as he is. But my job was to recognize it and allow it to flourish.
Right. And you inspired him. The motivation was in him.
It was
completely. But he needed that spark. He needed somebody to ignite that spark.
Right.
That inspiration is what opened the motivation for him to motivate himself to go and do it. And he's
move forward.
Doing great things.
Yeah, absolutely.
So much better than we.
Well, there's that. There is that.
But he's gone to the other side.
Right.
So that's
right.
okay.
That's true.
So let's talk. You brought up mentoring. Let's talk mentoring. We have a very unique group. We're very diverse. We've done a show with some of our other staff. Diane, you were involved with that around diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we are a very diverse group, not only as far as race and gender and things like that, but also age, right?
Yeah.
Because we've got this group here, and we have a few other senior level folks, but we've got a great group of younger people in their mid-20s to 30, early 30s who are at that really important career point, right? That point where they could literally go either way. They've been doing this for 8-10 years and they're professionals, but it's like you start to think about, okay, is this something I see myself doing for another 20 years or 30 years? Or, maybe that shiny thing over there might be more fun. So it's up to us to mentor them, and not only to show them, to help them to become the best they can be, but also to show them a path, their path, help them to find their path, right? How do you look at your responsibility in your role as a professional and doing what you do? How do you look at your role, your responsibility in mentoring the younger team?
I think it goes with being it goes with the territory. If you've learned something, and you have a lot of experience, you have, I would think, the responsibility to try and impart some of that knowledge and experience to those that are younger, at least provide them the path to follow, not just based on actual teaching, but in the way you do things, comport yourself, the way you talk, everything. You have to be some kind of role model in order to make sure that they're on the right path. And it's would I say, also more needed now, because it's kind of difficult finding capable staff at that mid-level to upper.
And when you
senior
have
level.
them, you have to develop them and keep them.
Yeah.
Right?
So, but now we're seeing that in order to meet as our staffing needs, we tend to go to entry-level folks, and those are the kinds of people that need the mentoring the most in terms of molding, to try and understand what the engineering field is to start with, and how to do things. And there are a number of things that go with engineering. If you're a professional engineer, you have to do the ethics of it. You have to make sure that you do things right. You don't cut corners. You don't forge things. There's a lot that go with it, and also the way you treat others around you. And
that's where the actions come in.
Yeah, and that you have to be able to teach somebody, both in terms of the technology or the knowledge part of it, and also in terms of how to behave and how to treat other staff in the office.
But absolutely.
If I can interrupt, but I think a lot of that comes back to a few things that we've mentioned here. It comes back to culture. So it's our responsibility in our position here it is our responsibility, not just something we should be doing. It's our responsibility to mentor people, to mentor the younger folks coming up. And I think we have to take that seriously, but I think where a lot of firms fall flat on this is that they don't, their culture doesn't allow for that. So because it takes time.
Interesting. Yeah.
It takes time, it takes some, and therefore resources. So time away from billable work, but it does take time to bring people along and to mentor them and to inspire them and to motivate them. So I think it has to be sort of part of your business model and part of your culture. I think it is here at GPI. And I'm glad for that, because otherwise, to your point before, how do you retain people? How do you keep them? How do you have to retain their interest?
Absolutely.
And they have to feel that they're respected and that they can learn something, and it's more than just skills that they're picking up.
And also that they bring something to us.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? I look at it as you never stop being mentored. You never stop mentoring, but and Marvin Williams, our guy Marvin, is the most significant mentor of my professional life, right? And he's still doing that. Okay, plus his heart, he's going to be 74 years old, and I thank God that he's in good health and he's still there for me, because I still call him. Yeah. And we work. He still works together. He works with us. He helps us, and I try to. And I think Diane and I are a great example of that, because of peer-to-peer mentoring. Because it doesn't have to be from the top down, right? And listen, this young lady sitting over here doesn't even realize it, but she, in me mentoring her on the business and client relations side of being a professional engineer, has been mentoring me on a lot of different things, resiliency and being open and learning in that. But Diane and I are able to bounce ideas off each other, and we talk a lot. Obviously, I have tremendous respect for her technically and from the business part of what we do. So we constantly have that interaction, and the three of us have had those conversations. So it's much, much more than just being a good engineer, right? So I think those mid-career people I was talking about, we need to make them feel like they're bringing value to us as well. It's not just a one-way thing that we're always teaching. We're willing to learn as well.
I think the other thing we need to do, and which is one of the reasons I think women leave, and one of the reasons that just other engineers leave the company is they get to this mid-level, right? So we've been teaching them, and then they get there, and then we don't tell them where the next step is, right? We don't tell them like, okay, this is how you move up. Here's the next step. Like we work so hard to get them to like this project engineer or this project manager standpoint,
right?
And then we go, okay, you made it. And then they go, but I'm 40 or I'm 30. And then they go, what are we going to do now? And that's when they go, oh, well, maybe I should go to another firm because another firm maybe looks shiny, right? Or I want to go to another business model because that business model has career steps that I can clearly see. And,
right.
Which is why, like, a lot of times when we talk about this whole seller-doer model, that there doesn't really allow for career steps because it's like, oh, well, you're now the seller and doer. Just go, have fun with that, right?
It gets down to people over profits, right?
Right.
So if you take care of your people, if you focus on the profits, you're going to lose your people. If you focus on your people, you're going to make profit. You're going to make money. Your people are who make you the money, right? So people over profits, that is exactly what you were just saying, right? So you've got to prioritize your people.
Yeah, and the thing is, I think it's done it's done.
With the program.
I was going to say, were you wanting him to disagree with you, or where was that going?
No.
Listen, he always does. He's never shy. Jim, I disagree with that. I think that.
No, but in this case, I completely agree with you.
There you go.
Know? So. I think we need to do a lot to keep on to retain people, and so far looking through GPI, I see people with 20 years of experience with GPI. There's so many people, which is rare, and I hope that I'll get to spend at least 20 years at GPI.
I do too, because that means I'm going to live a long life. But let me ask you this. What we're talking about, and it seems like we're kind of on the same page, do you think that if somebody's a job seeker, if I'm looking, whether it's an entry level or if you're, at a mid-career point, you're just maybe getting stale, and, we've talked about that, you're with someplace 10 years, you start to get a little bit stale. When you're looking to make a change, how important is a company's mission and values, their mission statement and their values? You go on, everybody does it, right? How important is that if in your mind as, a job seeker? And I realize you won't have to do that for 20 years, but still, I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, the thing is, it depends on what stage. If you use, like you said, say your 10-year to 15-year experience, at that point, you're not just thinking about a paycheck. You're also thinking about something that would mean something of value to you.
Culture, mission, those types of things come more into play than an entry-level person.
Exactly. But if it were an entry-level person, the person might think more like, let me get my first job, let me get a paycheck, let me be able to support myself, Yeah. But at that stage, you start to look for more value, would I say, things that will add value, like you said, the mission,
Well, it comes back to culture. That's what that is. I mean, your mission statement, that defines the culture of your firm.
Which I think we do a good job, because you can read everybody's mission statement and it sounds really nice. Like, let's just be honest. Like, you can go on any website and you go, oh, that sounds like a great mission. Great. But it's when you come into the office and you go, okay, are they living the mission, right? Are they living the values, right? Like, do you feel it? So, and I think that was one of the things with, because I didn't think I'd come back to consulting. I was done. I was out. I was like checked out. And when I got that phone call of like, do you want to entertain this? I'm like, not really. No, not at all. But because I knew all the firms in Pittsburgh, right? And I was like, I don't want to work for any of them. I don't like them. And so when I walked in and I saw that it was different, and like you can read them and you go, oh, well, they actually like. It is run like a small, family kind of thing. It is about the people. Okay. It's not about the profits. It's about doing the right thing. And you go, oh, okay. Well, that actually matches what they say. So.
It's funny you would say that, because there's somebody that left about a month after I left my former employer. And so the guy left, but then in less than a month, he went back. you know? And so it appeared that what they had told him in terms of the culture and everything
wasn't
was
there.
completely different, you know? And so, which is why every time I see my former colleagues, they keep on, so are you coming back?
No.
Did they lie to you?
I'm sorry.
You know, are things different? So, you know, so in terms of, you know, employers, when they try to hire, misrepresenting themselves in terms of, you know, the kind of environment and culture they provide and what they actually do,
Right.
you know, it may be completely different from the mission statement.
That's true. But you know, it's easy to talk the talk. It's a whole nother again, you read everyone's mission statement and they're all glowing and amazing and fantastic. You have to be at an organization for a bit
To see it.
to see if it's true or not, right?
Right.
And it
Yeah,
is
but
here,
this guy saw it in a month.
Right.
I think when you come in and you start seeing things,
he might not have been the most perceptive.
but in an interview,
Right, you can't
there's
tell
no
much.
way you know.
That's true.
Well, and
unless
especially
you don't-
if you don't interview with multiple people.
People.
If you interview with who potentially is just going to be your boss, which
yeah.
I mean is one of the things I think we do differently. Like we interview kind of as a group, right? So that you know what Ifeanyi sees versus what I see, what maybe Ashley sees. We see different things. So
Yeah, and it's even, you know, you in particular are very good at helping young technical people, professional people, to kind of put a light out there, a little spotlight, so they can let them find their career path, right? You know, I've said it and before, and I'll say it out loud again. Ashley's going to be the CEO of GPI at some point. Okay, she's going to stay here long enough to do that. She's made a commitment to me for that, and I even told Krister that that's our goal. So,
so when Krister watches it, it's fine. Ashley, he already knows it's fine.
I've already told him. He's prepared. He's prepared. So, but at the end of the day, why not?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So why say, okay, you know, you're in this department, and you know,
This is what you have to do.
I can look around that department and can say, okay, this guy's doing this. She's and okay. Where do I go from there? There's no place else. You know. So, but
I think we've had that. You and I've had that conversation when I was at Chester. My boss at the time said, do you see this as a career, or do you see it as a job? And I said, that's really more dependent on you and the management, because if you're going to show me a path to move up and a path to like have a career path and how I can move from like project engineer to project manager and up, then it's a career. But I said, if you're just going to hold me here, then it's a job and I'll go find another.
well, that's the thing. There can't be a ceiling, and
Right.
you know, I jokingly say that with Ashley, right? Because, you know, I want her to know that there is no ceiling here. For
Right,
her.
yeah.
At GPI, there is no ceiling.
Right.
She can go as far as she wants to go.
Well,
right.
And the reason I left Chester was just that. I said, I want to be a project manager. They said,
See,
you have to
wait,
be, and you have to be here 5 more years. And I said, I can be a project manager in 6 weeks somewhere else. And they said, go ahead and try. And I left a month later.
And
You know what I
did.
mean? Like I did. I said, okay,
that's
fine.
exactly right.
Like,
That's exactly right.
So, I mean, yeah. I mean, you can't limit.
Literally
people.
everything should be on the table because,
Yeah.
and you want to encourage, you know, continual education. You want to encourage young people to get an advanced degree, a master's, doctor, whatever the case may be,
Right.
even an MBA, whatever that is. But, you know, if they can look and see the ceiling, and maybe they can even touch it.
Yeah.
Again, how do you inspire them to go
Right.
do this? How do you motivate? You can't do it, right? So they're going to see that I'm only going to be here a short time because I'm going to get to this level really quick, and as soon as I get there, there's no place left for me to go. So then they're going to start to look, and it's going to be no matter how much development you've put into them, you're going to be hard to retain them if they can see the end of the line, right? I think that's a huge deal, and that's something we do well here, right? Because the way our organization is at GPI. The sky's the limit. You can create a career path here that doesn't exist right now. Okay?
Yeah.
And everybody at the senior level will embrace that.
Yeah, I mean,
Right?
we've done that here. I mean,
Yeah, sure.
I walked in, it was, we were doing, mid-level work and brought in, I mean, you guys are all kind of like part of that, right? Like we've said, this is what we want to be. And really senior management has said, okay, all right, go do that.
And they've supported us. And that one of the great things in my mind, in 40 years, I've worked at a few firms, none better than this. And the reason is they let Diane and I build a team that we trusted, that we respected, that we knew was going to be high performing, right? They didn't push back on anything. They trusted us to build this team, and we have a core team that I'll go up against anybody in the industry. I will put this group, Ashley, our water and wastewater group in Pittsburgh, I will put us up against anybody in the business. And we have that because everybody above us at GPI and alongside us gave us the freedom and the support to build this team. Mm-hmm. Right? So, I think that when you get those, like you said, your former colleague that was a month, mm-hmm. right? And he's like, whoa, this is, when I first came to GPI, when Diane first reached out to me, so I had been doing this 38 years. And one of the things in my job, even now, is to know all of my competition. I need to know their strengths, their weaknesses. I need to know who's doing what. I never heard of GPI, right? Mm-hmm. So the first thing I said to her was, what? But when I did the research, I saw enough, as you did, we had this conversation, mm-hmm. that I came on board, and I was a month, and I knew this was home. This is the company I've been looking for 37 years, right? So you can have that. If you're not being, if they're trying to pull the wool over your eyes, it won't take long to figure out. But if the company's the real deal, it also doesn't take long to figure out. Because you told me you felt comfortable here from the very beginning.
Yeah, actually, I had interviewed with a number of companies, I think 2 other companies, and they called me back for a second.
We whooped them.
They both called me back for a second interview. But,
and you both know who you are.
But after talking with Diane, I just called them and said, I've made my decision. Sure. I probably wouldn't go on with those. So even before, I didn't wait to compare whatever their offers would be. After talking with Diane,
And you said something very powerful to me when we had several really good conversations. We're friends, and I respected you for that. But something you said to me was very, very powerful. You really talked this over with your wife, and she bought into GPI, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's huge.
Yeah, actually, she was the one instrumental to my telling the other 2 companies that right. I'm no longer interested. And she said,
so we owe her, really, is what she's saying.
Checks in the mail.
But that's powerful stuff, and it all goes back to supporting the whole employee, mm-hmm. right? Holistically, not only mm-hmm. in the office but also at home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because if you took a job and your wife wasn't comfortable with that firm or what you were doing, that's not an easy thing to pull off.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't even think of it. The good thing, she gave the buy, early on, and she didn't.
She bought in.
Yeah, she didn't want to see what the others had to offer. She just said, from what you're saying about this mm-hmm. company, the people, go with it.
Yeah. And Georgie, we had almost the identical conversation, and I think from your perspective, being able to have the flexibility to be with your boys and things. And, there have been times where we've had function events or a conference or something you wanted to go to, but weren't able to pull it off or whatever. But
sure.
But you had the full support, not only of Diane and senior leader, but all of us.
Yeah.
Right?
No, it's fantastic. I mean, and unique.
Yeah.
To the point where, when I got started, it takes a while, right? Mm-hmm. Sort of you come into everything a little skeptically. But then you realize, no, this is actually the way things work around here. Mm-hmm. There is flexibility and there's autonomy. Mm-hmm. And but what's at the core of that, I think, is the foundation of that is a certain level of trust.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And I think that's what this team has amongst all of us here.
I'm still saying pinch me though.
I'm not going to do that for you, but no, really, that's significant, and you don't find that. You just don't find that out there. Again,
right.
Profit leads.
Sure.
The vision statement may say otherwise, but that's not how many companies work.
We're a business.
We have
at the
to
end
be
of the
profitable.
day, we're a business.
That's
mm-hmm.
or we're all out of work. I get that, but to your point, I think lead with your people. Profits they'll come.
I agree. I agree. So this has been pretty cool. And before we close out, I want to just touch on the diversity, equity, and inclusion. Okay, because I heard, and we can all go back and watch the episode where our younger folks talked at length about that. And again, we are a very diverse company, and I think we're inclusive in every area. As a woman in leadership in a very much still a male-dominated industry, does that have a more significant importance to you in your mind as you go forward and lead your team? Are you more conscious of that?
Of having a diverse team?
Yeah.
In
hiring and so on and so forth, in your recruiting and things like that.
Yeah, and I mean, I think because not only diverse in ethnicity and gender, but I think also in experience too, right? So
Right.
I mean, it's not like, okay, we're looking for, and we'll throw the males under, like we're looking for a white male like civil engineer. That's what we want. Like, do you want this box? It's like, we have chemical engineers work. We have environmental scientists who are project managers. We have, we have a variety of people who not all are PEs, but are manage in different ways.
Yep.
And I think they bring different things to the table.
Sure.
So because of that, I think it makes us much better. Like, we're much more well-rounded. We're not like,
Absolutely.
You don't walk in and go, oh, this is an engineering firm. You can read, oh yeah, we're here. Yeah, we've joked about walking in some places and it's like, yep, here we are.
Yep, the engineers are here.
Yeah, exactly. So.
No, and that's very true. But from what I've seen, my experience with you is you don't go intentionally the other way, right?
No.
You look at resumes first, and you discuss them all with us,
right?
But you don't intentionally try to attract more females, more minorities, or anything like that. Your intention is to attract the best people.
It is, but I think when you have a culturally diverse team, it's
Right.
easier to attract culturally diverse
Exactly.
people,
Exactly.
right?
That's the point.
Yeah.
Right. That's the point. So, we have been blessed with the opportunities we've put out there, the career opportunities. And I like to use that term, career opportunities, more than job opportunities, because like you said, job is temporary, career's an anchor. That's something that you're making a commitment both ways. But I think when you look at the responses that we get when we're out there looking, they are very diverse. And it's not like I guess the point I'm making is we're not specifically recruiting that way.
No.
But that's what's coming to us.
Yes.
And that's a testament to the team that we've built.
Yeah, I think so.
Excellent. You got anything you want to say? You're just going to sit there? What do you think? You just got
Let me keep talking.
No. I was just thinking of what you said in terms of it's not just what comes to us. We're looking at everything and we're basing it based on the skills, experience, and what we think they can bring to the table. It just turns out that they're a diverse group,
Right.
and so I would say in some other companies, they might weed out some people based on, say, their names or something that would try to exclude some people. In our own case, it doesn't really matter because we've interviewed, surprisingly, a lot of the people we've interviewed have been female, but also there've been a lot of people from, let's say, Indian, Asian background, from Peru, from, a diverse background, but because what we first look at is the experience or what we think will be a good fit for our team.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's it. Everything that we've discussed here is really everything that I have strived to find and to be over the course of my career, right? And I hope that you guys find what I do, which is completely different than what you guys do. I mean, we're all on the same team, but I come from a dramatically different perspective, right? I'm the business guy. I have to focus on that profit because sooner or later we've got to make some money, right?
And we will.
And we will. You know, our business has a pretty long runway, right? There's a lot of lead time. You know, it takes from day one, it takes a good bit of time, especially when you're trying to brand a firm. And basically, what we are in the water industry is a startup. You know, we're essentially a startup that's got, 50 years of experience and 1,700 employees. But we are a startup. We're brand new in this industry. So I think that, in addition to the support we received internally, allowed us to really build this team out the way that we needed to have it and the way we needed it to look like, right? So, because I think, do you think it's again, to the diversity and equity inclusion piece, how important is it for you guys, in speaking whatever order, to work in a place where there are people that look like you, right? So, I mean, from my perspective, I want to work in a place where nobody looks like me. I want people that think differently. I want people that look differently, walk, talk, everything, because that's how I'm going to become a better, not only a better employee, a better business developer, a better leader, but a better man, right? So is that something that you think, not only for yourself, but again, if you're looking in that job change, if you're in that market and you're looking for, is that something that you would look at when I look in this place? You're talking to people that may know there, are there people there that look like me, right?
Well, and I don't know. I'll answer for me, but I think I'll answer for a younger me kind of thing. Like, I mean, one of the, I was actually not going to be an engineer. I was going to go into medicine. And one of the reasons I didn't was I started looking for women who had kids and a family, and how do I do that, right? How can I be that person? And I couldn't find anybody. And so I think when you're a new engineer, and if you walk in and you see all white men, you go, is this really what I mean? Is this really what I want to be? Yeah. It's like, because you go, okay, if I'm having a bad day, like, who's my ally here, right?
Yeah, right.
Who do I talk to? And so, yeah, I mean, I think you go, wow, I don't know if I want to work in a place like that, or they start there and then they feel like they don't have any allies. They don't have anybody who looks like them and feels like them and can relate. And then that's when they leave, right? That's why they leave a lot of times. So, yeah, I think that is important. I mean, I've spent 20 years working with all men, so I'm just kind of used to it now. But I mean, I think to bring in new staff, and I think it's refreshing here. It's a mix, right? And I think it makes it more fun. I think it makes it more like real life, right? Like what you see out there is what you see when you walk in the door. So yeah, and again, I think it makes us friends, it makes us colleagues, it makes it a fun place to come in. So,
if I had a crystal ball to see the level of diversity before joining a firm, I would always pick the one that, is willing to take people of diverse nature than one that is, would I say, homogeneous in some sense.
Sure,
So,
right.
so
I agree.
I would always go with that, because one is, that those are the kinds of people that are willing, to understand, to interact with people that are different from
embrace differences, right?
People that are willing to learn from one another, people, that kind of stuff, rather than the other group. So I would always go with a place where you have a lot more minorities, a lot more women, a lot more, things like that. So.
Okay.
Because you're willing to have different ideas, right? So it doesn't even go to the whole diversity of people. It goes to, we're willing to hear different ideas, and
we're open to it. Right. Right. That's and that's important to me, because that's how we learn. We if everybody is the same, like you said, in a homogenous society would never thrive. It would wither and die. Right? So the things that make us different are the things that make us better.
Yeah.
Right?
So old white guy here. Yeah, I agree with what you were saying, Jim, completely. And everything that's been said here. I being in a diverse workplace, but what does that mean? Just being surrounded by folks with different opinions, they're coming at this career from different perspectives. I'm not going to understand. how would I know what it's like to grow up in Nigeria? I wouldn't know that. I have no idea, but I can learn from that. Or anywhere, or in the Mon Valley, or wherever. It's like, but having that perspective, or even as you were saying, what are the things that you're up against as a young mom, and what are the challenges that you're facing? How would I know that? Well, maybe I can learn from that. That only helps you grow not only as a professional, but as a human being. It can only add to the workplace. It can only enhance. It can only enhance the culture. So it always goes back to culture.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's something that I've learned here today. When I started thinking about topics, what we would talk about, right? And the thing that I've learned, all of these things, attracting, right, developing, retaining, everything that we've talked about has led back to culture.
Yeah,
think about it.
For sure.
The mentoring piece, everything has circled back to culture. I mean, and that's really cool, because that's something, again, that we walk that talk. We don't just say who we are who we are. So in wrapping this up, because we're actually going to get probably thrown out of the shop here very shortly, but because I think these people want to go home. So in closing, what some closing thoughts? We'll start with the fearless leader over there.
Man, you start with me. Ifeanyi's the one that's always talking.
It's got a rich baritone too. So
yeah, there you go. I mean, I think you're right. We've created quite a diverse team. I guess I'm looking forward to creating, a larger team, and I do think that I know one of the things that corporate said was, don't hire. One of the things they warned us about was hiring people because you hire people who look like you. And I'm like, well, I didn't really do that, but I don't know that I fit that mold. But I understand that, because you get that whole homogenous going on. I think we've worked really hard, like Ifeanyi said. Like, we look at resumes, we look at skill sets, we look at what people bring to the table, not necessarily what their name is or where they're from or what they've done.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay, all right. Any closing thoughts, young man?
Yeah, I would say I'm very happy to be working at GPI. I think it's one of the best decisions my wife has helped me make. And I'm truly grateful to her for that. Happy that Diane and all of you guys welcomed me into the fold, and I really feel at home, at peace, happy, and I just want to say to corporate that that I thank them for the confidence they've placed in us, and I think we're going to do bigger and better things than they expected, and we won't let them down.
Absolutely.
There
Georgie?
it is. Hey, listen, this team, everyone that I've met at GPI, you motivate me all, and you inspire me every day. So I think, and with that, I think, we're destined for great things. I'm looking forward to it. It's exciting.
Yeah, and the fun's going to start now.
Yeah.
Right. We've done the due diligence. We've been out there, hitting the pavement and shaking hands, kissing babies, doing all the things we need to do, and we really are now ready to launch to the next step.
Yeah.
And that's exciting. That's the exciting space, right? So listen, I want to thank you guys for coming on and joining us. We have a lot of fun doing this, and I want to thank you guys honestly for supporting what Nick and I are doing here. I've given up 38 lunch hours now, but I really appreciate how you guys have accepted the podcast and what we're trying to do and the message we're trying to put out, because I think it ties directly into our message at GPI and what we're trying to do. So this was a great conversation, and thank you guys a lot.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.